Hello, and welcome to Manta's Overtime Compliance Academy. This pro-level overtime compliance course will walk through the federal standards for classifying your white-collar employees as exempt from overtime pay. As we discussed in the beginner's level course of this series, the federal rules that govern overtime pay are complex. Many small employers are at risk of incorrectly classifying their salaried, white-collar employees as overtime exempt when those workers may actually be eligible to receive overtime pay. This course will help you conduct your own employee audit to make sure you're complying with federal overtime rules under the Fair Labor Standards Act, the FLSA. We'll focus on the most common type of overtime exempt employees, white-collar workers like managers, administrators, and professional staff. To help you navigate employee overtime eligibility under the Federal Fair Labor Standards Act, this series features legal and operational insights from the U.S. Department of Labor and Jill Carilla, partner and employment law attorney at global firm Squire Patton & Boggs. Before we look at the specific white-collar employee exemptions, let's review your basic overtime-related responsibilities as a small employer under the FLSA. As an employer, you're required to pay employees overtime wages of time and a half for any hours they work beyond the 40-hour work week, unless they meet the requirements to be classified as overtime exempt. There are two tests to determine if an employee is exempt from receiving overtime pay under federal law: a salary test and a duties test. You, the employer, are responsible for making sure your employees are paid the minimum required salary and perform the right kind of duties before you can count them as ineligible for overtime pay. To be classified as exempt, full-time employees must be paid at least the minimum salary amount set by the U.S. Department of Labor. That minimum salary, which was raised in May of 2016 by the Obama administration, is $47,476 annually. That's at least $913 a week. Begin your employee classification audit with this salary test. Do you pay your employee an annual salary that's less than $47,476? If so, stop. You cannot classify this employee as exempt. Employees who make a salary under the threshold are eligible for additional overtime wages. If your full-time employee does earn an annual salary of $47,476 or above, continue on through the FLSA duties test to see if that position can be classified as exempt. FLSA regulations are complex, like the federal tax code. They apply differently for each distinct employment situation, says attorney Jill Carilla. Employers often misclassify employees as exempt just because they receive a salary and perform non-manual work. For example, many employers believe secretaries, assistant managers, and other administrative professionals are exempt from overtime pay because of the white-collar nature of their work. But these positions often fail to meet the Labor Department's overtime exemption standards. That's why it's important to walk through the duties tests for each employee or group of employees with similar duties that you classify as exempt from overtime pay. The FLSA classifies a variety of employee groups as overtime exempt. This classification depends on the industries in which they work and the duties they perform. The most common type of overtime exemption is the white-collar exemption. This exemption covers employees who perform executive, administrative, or sales duties. For most small businesses, this will apply to certain managers, administrative staff, and your outside sales teams. Other employee groups, like computer workers, creatives, and knowledge professionals, fall under this classification as well, though we're limiting our coverage here to the three classifications most common among small employers. As well as the salary test, employees must also pass the FLSA's white-collar duty test for the specific jobs they perform before you can classify them as exempt. Using the online FLSA Overtime Security Advisor, let's walk through the duty tests for three common white-collar exemptions: the executive exemption, the administrative exemption, and the outside sales exemption. All definitions come directly from the U.S. Department of Labor. To qualify for the executive or management exemption, all of the following must apply to your employee. His or her primary duty must be managing the enterprise or managing a department or subdivision of the enterprise. The employee must customarily and regularly direct the work of at least 2 or more other full-time employees or their equivalent. And finally, the employee must have the authority to hire or fire other employees, or the employee's suggestions and recommendations as to the hiring, firing, advancement, promotion, or any other change of status must be given particular weight. To qualify for the administrative employee exemption, all of the following must apply. The employee's primary duty must be the performance of office or non-manual work directly related to the management or general business operations of the employer or the employer's customers. The employee's primary duty must include the exercise of discretion and independent judgment with respect to matters of significance. To qualify for the outside sales employee exemption, all of the following must apply. The employee's primary duty is making sales, obtaining orders or contracts, and the employee must regularly be engaged in work away from the employer's place or places of business. These exemptions do not apply to blue-collar workers. The Department of Labor specifies that FLSA-covered non-management employees in production, maintenance, construction, and similar occupations such as carpentry, electricians, mechanics, plumbers, iron workers, longshoremen, construction workers, and laborers are entitled to minimum wage and overtime premium pay under the FLSA and are not exempt under regulations no matter how highly they might be paid. Don't assume that just because an employee does office work that they're automatically counted as exempt from overtime. Office duties do not always equal overtime exemption. Many small employers think this to be the case with secretaries and assistants, says Carilla, when these workers, in fact, are very often eligible for overtime pay. General administrative workers who have no authority to make operational or managerial decisions don't pass muster under the FLSA duty tests. You'll often need to plan on paying these ground-level workers overtime pay in order to avoid a violation. The Department of Labor provides resources to you to help classify your employees correctly. To check your employee classifications yourself, go to the Department of Labor's interactive FLSA Overtime Security Advisor. The link to the site is listed above. Select the type of employee you're researching, executive, administrative, etc. Then answer a series of questions about that employee. The advisor will give you the best possible answer as to your employee's overtime status. You may also seek assistance in person at the Department of Labor Wage and Hour Division office in your area. See the link in this slide to find the office nearest you. Also, the Department of Labor invites any small business owner to call them at 866-487-9243 for assistance. If you think you need professional assistance, our experts recommend taking one of the following steps. Hire a law firm or HR consultant to conduct an employee audit and identify wage and hour issues. If you have more than a handful of employees or you're preparing to expand your business, consult with a labor and employment lawyer who can help you structure your employee classifications in a way that minimizes your overall payroll costs. Thanks for joining us today for Manta's Pro-Level Overtime Compliance course. We hope you leave with a better understanding of how to classify your employees. The next course in this series will provide you with tactics and tools for balancing your staffing levels and keeping your overtime expenses within a payroll budget. For daily advice on small business marketing, finance, operations, sales, and management, we invite you to spend some time reading the articles in the News and Advice section on the Manta.com homepage. While you're there, sign up to receive weekly email updates with helpful operational and marketing advice. The Manta team works to empower small businesses to grow and prosper. Every day, we provide thousands of owners with expert advice, training, and practical resources through Manta articles, courses, and webinars. Is there a small business topic you'd like to read about on Manta.com? Send your suggestions to our editors at contentteam@manta.com. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks again, and we wish you the best as you adjust to these new FLSA overtime rules.